All right, welcome in everybody to the post-game show. Altitude Sports Radio 92.5. I'm Dan Tanner, reacting to Nuggets and Jazz, who just finished up there. What a win for the Nuggets. 132 to 121 is your final. This was an insane stat they said on the broadcast, and I couldn't believe that this was the case. Thinking back over the years now, I do kind of believe it, but this was the first time in the history of the Denver Nuggets that they won two times in the same season in Utah, a place the Nuggets have historically struggled. So, tremendous accomplishment for the Nuggets tonight. You know, I get that the Jazz are a rebuilding basketball team at best, but man, that's a tough place to play for the Nuggets. And they went in there tonight and I thought played their asses off. So excellent win. We have so much to get into here on the show. There were a lot of records being broken tonight or close to being broken. One of those is Christian Braun. Let's just start right there with him. What a game for him tonight. He was a dunking machine, a fast break machine, a transition offense juggernaut tonight for the Nuggets. He finishes 9 of 12 shooting from the field. That's what happens when you're just dunking the basketball the whole game. You shoot 9 of 12. He only took one three-pointer and he missed it. 20 points. But the crazy thing about Christian was 16 fast break points tonight for CB. So 16 of his 20 fast break points. If he would have gotten to 18, it would have been broken the record for the most in any game in Nuggets franchise history. He had a chance late in the game. Joker finds him on the fast break, and then Utah, I don't even remember who it was. It might have been Jordan Clarkson or Colin Sexton, wraps him up and doesn't allow him to get the 18. Now, whether Joker or the Utah players were aware of that, I don't know. I highly doubt it, but that would have been really cool to see. But either way, CB's 16 fast break points tonight were the most by any player in any game the entire season in the NBA. So that just tells you a little bit about what Christian Braun was up to tonight. And honestly, like, this is what makes Christian Braun the most effective, is the version we saw tonight. He getting out in transition, dunking the basketball, being around the rim, being a defensive stopper, and then getting out on the fast break. I don't mind Christian Braun shooting the three ball, especially those corner threes. He's proven that he can hit those at a decently high clip. I think it's close to 40% from the corner, which is good. And if he's hitting threes, to me, that's just a bonus. But tonight, what he did was vintage Christian Braun, and this is when he's at his best. So, you know, he was in a little bit of a mini slump over the last couple of games. It wasn't anything too crazy, but it was really good to see him get it going tonight, because for the first, month and a half of the season, I thought Christian Braun was really one of the best. The second best player on this Nuggets team was Christian Braun for the first month and a half of the season. I stand by that. Now it's back to Jamal Murray, who we'll get into here in just a little bit. But it was great to see Christian Braun sort of regain his confidence, I guess. I don't know if he lost his confidence, but regain his production tonight in a Christian Braun vintage fashion is what he did tonight. So that was really good to see. I thought the Nuggets just as a whole were really, really good in transition. And obviously what helps with that is stealing the basketball. That helps lead to fast break opportunities. They had 13 steals tonight, which I believe is a season high for the Nuggets compared to Utah's 6. So the Nuggets more than doubled up the steals tonight from Utah, which was absolutely fantastic. And that led to 34 fast break points. Again, 16 of those, nearly half, coming from Christian Braun. So that's really what I thought separated them towards the end of this basketball game. It just sort of wore Utah down, which was great to see. And then obviously the Nuggets dominated in the painted area tonight as well, which they typically do. They outscored Utah 76-60 in the paint tonight, which was great to see. So Nikola Jokic, speaking of the Joker, he had another triple-double tonight, just monster game from Joker tonight. He had 36 points, 22 rebounds, and 11 assists. His career high in rebounds is 27. So he got somewhat close to that, but just a monster triple-double night from Nikola Jokic. 15 of those rebounds were on the defensive end. So he did a really good job on the defensive glass tonight for Denver, not allowing a lot of second chance opportunities for Utah, which, let's be honest, the Nuggets have been struggling with rebounding the basketball over the course of this season. So it was really good to see Nikola dominate the defensive glass like he did tonight. And he was just spectacular. Again, 36 points, 22 rebounds, 11 assists. There was an interesting moment towards the end of the second quarter in this game. So Joker gets an inbound, or not an inbound pass, but a pass from Michael Porter Jr. down low in the post. He's got Lauri Markkanen down there, and they're just kind of going at it. Lauri's like bent over. Joker trips over him, does this like one-handed, left-handed water polo layup into the hoop, doesn't get the foul call. And Joker is, I wouldn't say he was incensed. He was definitely frustrated. But the person who was incensed was Michael Malone. In fact, he was so incensed he got a technical foul. And those are one of the moments where I actually really like Malone sticking up for his guy and getting a technical there. You know, there was another incident late in this game in the fourth quarter where Jamal Murray's getting frustrated. He could have gotten teed up, and Malone just sort of calmed him down. There's right moments to get technicals, and there's wrong moments to get technicals. At the end of the second quarter, when your superstar is not getting the calls that the head coach feels he deserves, that's a spot to get a technical. And I thought Malone did a good job of calming Jamal Murray down late in this game, because this game wasn't over by any stretch of the imagination. With, you know, once there was about under a minute to go, this thing was all but over. But there was still, I don't know, 3 minutes on the clock left when all that went down with Jamal Murray. And he almost got a technical. He was jawing at the officials. He almost looked like he was asking for a tech there. So credit to Coach Malone for sort of calming that down. But a lot of frustration with the refs tonight for the Nuggets. You know, I thought a lot of it actually was pretty deserved. The refs did not have a good night tonight. They just didn't on either end of the floor. And that's where you kind of start to see frustration boil over. But look, the fact of the matter is the Nuggets didn't let that bother them. In fact, so that the Joker incident with the non-calls, Malone gets the technical, was at the very end of the second quarter. So Utah actually carries a 2-point lead going into the half. It was 66-64 at the half. But Nikola Jokic took that anger or took that frustration out on the Utah Jazz, because in the third quarter, he scored 17 points in that third quarter and really just sort of helped the Nuggets take control of this basketball game. I mean, they were down by 2 at halftime, and they ended up with a 98-89 lead going into the fourth quarter. I thought it was an absolutely dominant third quarter for the Nuggets, which I've talked about this before, but it's interesting to see how different seasons play out, because I remember just a short couple of years ago, the Nuggets, for whatever reason, were awful in third quarters. Like throughout the whole season, they just could not figure it out, to the point where like Michael Malone was like, do I need to get these guys orange slices at halftime in the locker room? Like, what's going on here? Well, they've obviously figured out whatever they needed to, because the Nuggets have been dominant in the third. Now, where they've struggled this year is the first quarter, starting games. I actually thought the Nuggets started out this game really well tonight. I thought they were really aggressive. They were attacking to start the game. They got out to an early 14-10 lead, but then the defense collapses, and Utah just Jordan Clarkson caught fire. By the way, he is going to be a hot commodity at the trade deadline. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Nuggets looked at Jordan Clarkson very, very closely. He's a pure scorer of the basketball, which this team could definitely use, especially coming off the bench. But he just went off. I mean, he started hitting 3 after 3, caught fire, and Utah led after the first quarter. Now, what was interesting tonight about the second quarter and to start the fourth, we've seen this very sporadically throughout the last couple of years, but this was really the first time this year where I thought the Nuggets coaching staff really went to this and it was effective. Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray started the second quarter with the second unit. So it was DJ, Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, Michael, and Jamal. We have not seen that a whole lot this year. I thought they were really good to start that second quarter. In fact, they got out to a 7-2 run for that group, but then the defense sort of collapsed. The Jazz ended up going on a 9-0 run, 17-2 extended, and sort of killed that momentum. But that's definitely a lineup I would like to see Malone employ more throughout this season. Maybe that will help the second unit. Like I said, the defense sort of collapsed there after the 7-2 start for that unit. But I thought the way the basketball was moving around on the offensive end is something we haven't seen this year from that unit. So it will be really interesting to see if Coach Malone decides to continue to go that route where he's staggering not only Jamal or not only MPJ, but both of them with that second unit. I thought that helped the flow of the offense a lot tonight. And it just adds, instead of having like one go-to scorer on the second unit, well, now you put in two. So I thought that was a really good move by Michael Malone tonight, and I would expect that he uses that moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see how long he decides to go with that, or if tonight was just sort of a one-off. Malone's experimenting still with the lineups, and AG still out. Obviously, he's going to have to, continue to experiment with the lineups, with Russell Westbrook being inserted into the starting lineup. But man, DJ is pretty much planted himself as the backup center, or Michael Malone has planted DJ as the backup center, because now Dario Saric was obviously dealing with some injuries and stuff like that throughout the course of this year, but he's back and he's just not playing. So that's still something that I think needs to be addressed. I don't think this team can perform well down the stretch of the season and into the playoffs with DeAndre Jordan as your primary backup five. I just don't think that's feasible. So look, credit to DJ. He's been decently effective when he's been in there, but not for what a championship team aspires to be. So there's something that's going to have to change with the backup five. It's either going to have to be Dario Saric comes in and shows that he can play with this group, or they're going to have to make a move. Because like I said, it's great that DJ is playing decent for a guy that's 60 years old and been around forever. I just don't think that's sustainable. So the things I'm still concerned about is the backup five, obviously, the lack of bench scoring, which we'll see if Malone decides to go that route, if MPJ and Jamal stagger with the second unit. I liked that, and I thought it was effective for the most part. But the defense is just not good enough to win a championship. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about that. You give up 37 points to a bad Utah team tonight in the first quarter. It's sort of recovered a little bit in quarters 2 and 3. They give up 29 in the second, 23 in the third. That was the Nuggets' best quarter on both ends of the floor, in my opinion, tonight, easily. And then you give up 32 in the fourth. Again, like, this is the concerning thing. If this was, the Celtics or the Cavs or one of these high-scoring, potent offensive teams, Dallas when Luka's in there, okay, you give up 37 points in the first. Like, it is what it is. That's still a little too high for my liking. But at least it's against really good offensive opponents. But tonight, man, I mean, the Jazz are 7-24 on the year. They are not a good basketball team. And they've got some talent on the offensive end, sure. I've always liked Lauri Markkanen. He's a really good player. He's probably their best player. Colin Sexton, I've always liked him at the guard position. And then obviously I mentioned Jordan Clarkson. He's just one of those can catch fire at any moment type of guys. But other than that, the Jazz should not be scoring 121 points on the Nuggets. That's just too much. Now, the offense has been so good this year for the Nuggets that I think it's helped cover up some of those deficiencies a little bit, but they haven't been able to cover them up against really good teams. Like the Cavs game a couple of nights ago, for instance, the Nuggets scored, what was it, like 135? I mean, they scored a bunch of points, and they still got blown out because the defense was atrocious. So these are things where it's like a win tonight. It feels great. They needed it. It's second win in Utah in the same season. First time it's ever happened. I don't care how bad the Jazz are for whatever reason. I still don't understand why the Nuggets are so bad in Utah historically. But for whatever reason, excuse me, they are. Um, but it's just the same issues for me are still there. It's poor defense, lack of bench scoring, and basically no backup five. And I love DJ, but he's not going to be the guy that can consistently help contribute to this team. Look, my mindset for this team, everything, the way I think about this is it good enough to win a championship? And that's how you should be thinking about it as well. That's how the players should be thinking about it. That's how the coaching staff should be thinking about it. That's how the front office should be thinking about it. When you have Nikola Jokic on your basketball team in his prime, he's the best player in the world. Every single decision or thought process needs to be, is this helping us win a championship, or is this hurting our chances of winning a championship? And having DeAndre Jordan as your backup five, to me, is hurting your chances of winning a championship. Having the lack of bench scoring is hurting your chances to win a championship. Plain and simple. The poorest defense is not going to help you win a championship. Now, look, let's be real here. There's not a ton the Nuggets can do as far as moves go, just as far as the salary cap restrictions are with this team, the second apron, all that stuff comes into play. And if they're going to make a big-time move, they're going to have to get rid of one of the big four contracts. There's no doubt about it. You can't trade Jamal legally, so it's not going to be Jamal. You're not going to trade Aaron Gordon, and you're definitely not even getting close to picking up the phone for Nikola Jokic, so that leaves Michael Porter Jr. But, man, I mean, the way MPJ's been playing, like, let's be honest, this has been MPJ's best year by far, I think, on both ends of the floor. He's not a great defender, but he has become the type of defender where teams can't just like pinpoint him every single possession down the floor. You just can't do that. We saw Golden State try that a little bit with Steph Curry about a month or so ago, and Steph just wasn't hitting most of the shots he makes, so who knows? But other than that, you haven't really seen a lot of teams hunting Michael Porter Jr. on the defensive end. So I at least think he's become, somewhat competent on the defensive end. And offensively, I've talked about this a bunch. My favorite thing about Michael Porter Jr. this year is that he's evolved into not just an outside jump shooter. I mean, the amount of times MPJ goes to the rim this year compared to seasons past is exponential. I mean, it's been worlds above what he used to do. So I've loved that part and growth in his game. It's made him become a more efficient and effective scorer. And now the three-pointers are starting to be a little bit more open because he is driving to the rim so much that it makes the defenders second guess on closing out to him super fast out on the three-point line. Look, I mean, let's not get it twisted, though. Michael Porter Jr. is the best pure three-point shooter on this team. So I want him taking threes. My problem with MPJ has been shot selection, when to take the threes. Really is what an area where I think he's grown as well. And you used to see at times earlier on in MPJ's career where he'd jack up a shot, not even necessarily a three-pointer, just an outside jumper, and you would see Nikola Jokic sort of like roll his eyes. You don't really see that a whole lot anymore. And I think that's really telling. I think that says that these guys are trusting Michael to shoot the ball when it's appropriate and to make the pass or whatever it is when it's not there. So, man, I mean, like the whole trading Michael Porter Jr. thing, I can understand why some people would be in favor of that and why some people would be against that. At the start of the season, or let's just say the first month and a half of the season, I would have said I was probably in the camp of trading him with how this team has played. But I also have to remind myself that this core won this team a championship. Now, they obviously had KCP and Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, which helped them along the way, a rookie Christian Brown who's still on the team, thankfully. But I give myself pause now when it comes to trading Michael Porter Jr. because the team as a whole, especially on the offensive end, not on the defensive end, that's still a big issue, but the team as a whole on the offensive end really looks like they're starting to click. I mean, Jamal Murray, he looks like he's back. And he wasn't super efficient tonight by any means. He was just 7 of 17 shooting from the field, 2 of 6 from 3. But he had 20 points, 10 assists, a couple of steals, and a block. and he only had 3 turnovers, which from your main point guard, 3 turnovers in a game, you'll take that every time. So it is just going to be it's going to be really interesting to see what this team decides to do here in the next month or so, as far as roster construction, who stays on this team, who's gone. Everybody, I get texts all the time and tweets all the time, like, well, what about trading Zeke Naji? Well, that's fine, but what are you going to get for him? I mean, at best, you're going to get a really late second round pick and maybe a bit of a salary dump. So I don't really know how feasible a Zeke trade is with the contract he's on. But we'll see. Let's see. Let's get to some of your comments here. Chris, yeah, I love this comment from Chris. Saric and Zeke, 5th and 6th highest paid players, are both unplayable. Yep. I mean, that's rough. And that adds to my point I've been kind of saying all year. It puts even more pressure on the big 4. Your best 4 players, your highest 4 paid players, it puts more pressure on them to produce. Michael and Jamal have to be stellar for this team. Aaron Gordon and Nikola, you know what you're going to get. Consistency, really good play. Not worried about those two. But it does come down to Michael and Jamal as far as those 4 have to be clicking in order for this team to have a chance at winning a title. But that is rough, man. Like Saric and Zeke, 5th and 6th highest paid players, and they're both not playing at all. That's rough. I don't know what else to say, but you're right, Chris. Absolutely. That's true. All right, my guy Kevin says, what did I tell you, DT? Jamal is back. I've been saying it for weeks, guys and gals. I said it before he really, really, like, production-wise looked back. He's moving so much better. You can tell he's getting healthier. In fact, I thought it was really interesting. After the game a couple of nights ago, Jamal talked about how he understands he has not been playing well. That's the first time I've really heard him say that and made it known that he was aware of that. And obviously he's aware, like, these guys aren't stupid. They're aware of what's going on. But it was interesting to hear him sort of address that and be open and honest about it. Coach Malone addressed it too. He said, hey, Jamal knows he's not playing well. He wants to play better, more than anybody wants him to. He himself wants to play better. And he has been. So that's been a really positive sign for this team. I mean, golly, it was after the Wizards game. I remember I was doing the post-game show and tons of comments, trade Jamal. And then I looked it up and I found out you couldn't trade him because of the contract. But at the time, I mean, there were serious considerations on my part if you could trade him, where I said, man, this just does not look right. I thought he was playing so poorly, though, that even if he was available to trade, I don't know how much the Nuggets would have gotten for him. I mean, they would have gotten something, but his value had plummeted. But it's starting to creep back up, and this is what it's going to take. I mean, they cannot have Jamal Murray play like he did the first 2 months of the season and expect to even be competitive in the playoffs, let alone to compete for a championship. So that is great news for this team. It's finally starting to look like Nikola Jokic doesn't have all the pressure in the world on him to propel this team to victories. That is probably the most positive thing I've seen over the last month or 3-ish weeks, I would say. He's finally getting some help on the offensive end. I mean, go back to the Wizards game. He scores 50-plus points. They lose. This team cannot win if Nikola Jokic has to go out there and try and score 50 every night. That's just not in their DNA. It's not in their makeup. I think the Nuggets have won like one game ever where Joker scored more than 50 points. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but in all of the other games that he scored 50, it's been in a loss. And the reason for that is because Joker's not getting any help. And he understands that, like, if I don't go out and score 55 plus tonight, we don't have a shot. So, it is what it is. But it was really good to see over the last couple of weeks. Nikola Jokic looks like he's a little less stressed, which is great for everybody. All right, let's get some more of your comments in here. Kenneth says, good win, still gave up 120 points to a 7-win team. If they can't average, if if they can just average on defense 100 points a game, this team has championship. 100 points a game is asking a lot. That's like the best defensive teams in the NBA all time. But I see what you're saying, and I mentioned this earlier. Like, yeah, great win, but you gave up 121 to a bad Utah team. And you gave up 37 in the first quarter, which over the last 3 or 4 games, it seems like they've given up damn near 40 points in every first quarter. So slow starts, they've been able to sort of work their way into the game on the defensive end to at least sort of manage it. But I'm telling you, that's still a major, major concern of mine. And I think if they're going to make moves at the deadline, it's going to be to go get defense and outside shooting and bench scoring and all that stuff. But I think it's plainly obvious that the defense, the way it's been playing this year, the way it looked tonight, it's not good enough to win a title. So I agree with you, Kenneth. Good point. Chris says, enjoyable win, but DT, do you think the Nuggets defense can get better without a trade? I think they can get marginally better, but not good enough to where it's going to like make them legitimate championship contenders. Again, I've said this before. I'm not asking this team to be top 5 in defense. They don't need to be top 5 in defense to win a title. They do need to be top 12. And I think they were like 10th the year they won the championship. So they're in the 20s right now. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. So I do think in order to improve the defense, you're going to have to go out and make a trade. I'll leave that up to Calvin Booth and the front office as to who they think would best fit that bill to improve the defense. But I do think that with the roster as currently constructed, the defense will not be good enough to win a title. So and that's why I've said at the trade deadline, they need to make a move to get better defensively by any means necessary, obviously, other than trading Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon. So we'll see, but it's still a big concern of mine. Absolutely. All right, let's get to more of your comments here. Jamie says, crossing your fingers and hoping Jamal and MPJ can consistently play at a high level is a hell of a strategy. Yeah, I mean, that's a risky move. There's no doubt about it, Jamie. You're right. That is a risky move. And why is it a risky move? Well, because they've both been very inconsistent throughout various points in their career. Jamal not as much as Michael, but you're right. I mean, that's a risky move. There's no doubt about it. But here's the thing. They already paid them. They're going to be here. So that's the strategy they're riding with. Unless they trade Michael. I mean, that's the other option. They're not trading Jamal. They can't. But I got to say, my confidence level in Michael has shot up over the last month or so. He has been playing much better, especially on the defensive end. I don't think he's become a huge liability. He still does foul too much on that end, and we saw that tonight. He just has like he'll get the initial stop, and then he sort of just slaps his hand in there at the last second. That's something that Scott was actually talking about on the broadcast tonight. If he can fix that, I think he really becomes a at least competent player on the defensive end. But look, excellent win for the Nuggets tonight. Congratulations to Nikola Jokic. He's got over 15,000 career points. He's going to go down as the best Nuggets player of all time. It's not even close. So really cool to see. Just a cool moment for Joker tonight. He probably doesn't even know or care, which is what we love about him. Christian Braun, 16 fast break points, the most of any player in any game this season. I thought he was electric tonight. That's the Christian Braun that the Nuggets need on a consistent basis. Again, shoot the corner threes if they're open. I'm okay with Christian shooting those. Not so much Russ, but Christian, he has shown the ability to knock those down. But I'm telling you, when he's at his most effective is exactly what we saw tonight. Out in transition, on the fast break, playing really good defense. The Nuggets had 13 steals tonight. It helped them get out in transition. And I thought it was just an outstanding game from Christian Braun tonight. He was in a bit of a mini slump, but he sure as hell shot out of that thing like a cannon tonight and was just terrific. So Christian's been great all year. He just had a bit of a slump there over the last week or two, but he looks like he's back. So it was really good to see. My guy Pants Party, favorite name. I know I sound like a broken record, DT, but I cannot fully buy into a team that gives up 120 points to every opponent every night. Yep, everybody's kind of saying the same thing I am. This team is not going to win a title with the defense they have, plain and simple. So you're all seeing it. I'm seeing it. If we're all seeing it, you would hope that the front office sees the same things we're seeing, and I'm sure they do. And again, what's so crazy about this is Michael Malone, we kind of forget because the offense has been so good in the Jokic era. We kind of tend to forget that Michael Malone is a defensive-minded head coach, okay? Let's not forget that. This is eating at him. And his voice is going to be heard as far as moves go and who he wants to be on this team. That's who I really trust more than anybody. As far as fixing the defense and trades, I bet you Michael Malone has a lot of say when it comes to that because he is a defensive-minded guy. That's how he was brought up. He's let Nikola just kind of take over the offense, which was a great move on his part. Once he did that and inserted him in the starting lineup, the Jokic era truly began. But yeah, I'm with you all who has big concerns about the defense. I do too. It's got to be better. You can't give up 121 points to a really bad Utah Jazz team. They might end up getting their first pick in the draft this year. I mean, who knows? But plain and simple, the defense has to get better. Forget the on-ball, like shot creating, one-on-one, break you down type player. They need defense, plain and simple. And again, I've talked about like they do need that. They do need a Zach LaVine type of player that can break you down one-on-one and create his own shot, especially when Nikola Jokic is not on the floor. That's when they need it most. But more than anything, they need defense on this team just to be competent in that area. And I think this team will have a hell of a chance at winning a championship if they can do that. If not, I don't think they have a shot. But we'll see what they do. It's going to be really interesting. What a win for the Nuggets tonight, though. Just an all-around performance from this team, especially the starting five. I mean, look at this. Christian Braun, 20 points. Jamal, 20 points. Russell, he was excellent tonight. Didn't miss a shot. 7 of 7 from the field. 16 points. Joker, 36. MPJ, 21. And then Peyton Watson. Haven't even mentioned Peyton Watson tonight. I thought he was terrific tonight running the floor. Him and CB running the floor tonight was very tantalizing. And it's like, man, if those two can just do that night in and night out, that is a dangerous combination, potential combination for the Nuggets when those two are running the floor like they did tonight. And I thought they were both outstanding tonight. But the bench overall, minus Peyton Watson, gave you 6 points. Peyton gave you 13, which was great. And then Julian and DJ combined for 6. Hunter Tyson in his 7 minutes had 0. So the bench, the backup 5, and defense. Those have been my concerns. Those will be my concerns until the team makes changes. Like the backup 5 thing I go back to. Does anybody listening have confidence that Dario Saric is going to eventually take over that role? I mean, we're over 2 months into the season, and I understand he was dealing with an injury over the last couple of weeks of the season, so that's partly why he hasn't been playing. But he's back and healthy, and he still is not playing. Zeke Naji, he is who he is. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Zeke Naji. But those are my major concerns, and I do think they're going to have to make moves at the deadline to improve in those areas. So let's see here. Pants Party says someone like KCP would be a great fit, but great. Yeah, well, he was a great fit. It helped him win a title. Absolutely. But the KCP departure, I'm not as down as some people are on that. I was at first, but the way Christian Braun has stepped into that void this year has eased my pain because he's been terrific in that role. In fact, I think numbers-wise, he's actually putting up better numbers all across the board than KCP did last year for the Nuggets. So the KCP thing, it hurt to see him go because the team won a title with him. But they also won a title with Christian Braun, and he's stepped in and been really, really good in that role. The one that still hurts to this day is Bruce Brown, and I get why they couldn't keep him. You had drunk Malone at the parade saying he's not going anywhere. We all knew he was leaving. Coach Malone knew he was leaving, even if he won't admit it. You can't leave that type of money on the table if you're Bruce Brown. That's a once in a lifetime sort of deal. Who knows? Maybe they can get Brucey B back here in a couple of years when the salary cap changes or the Nuggets salary cap changes with whatever moves they decide to make. But yeah, that's sort of where I'm at with the Nuggets right now. Offense is fantastic. Positives from tonight. Jamal looks like he's back. Michael's playing great on the offensive end. Nikola is just having the best season probably of anybody ever. He's been unbelievable this year. So those are very positive rays of sunshine moving forward for you Nuggets fans. But the negatives are very concerning, like we've talked about. But hey, good win tonight. It's like I said, it's not easy getting a win in Utah. And I know the Jazz are down, but this team has historically struggled in Utah, which for the life of me, I cannot figure out. You know, you might say, well, a lot of teams could say, well, it's the elevation. Well, the Nuggets play at a higher elevation than Utah. So it's not the elevation. It's a short flight. It's just a quick little hop and a skip and a jump over the Rocky Mountains and you're there. So I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll tell you what, Russell Westbrook looked like he was enjoying himself tonight in Utah. We all know the history there, and he was loving himself some Russell Westbrook tonight, and that was awesome to see. You know, you could tell he kind of takes these games a little bit more personal because of the history he has with the fan base there in Utah. But yeah, excellent stuff there, and we'll see what happens with this team. Like I said, just great win tonight, all around excellent performance on the offensive end, but there are still some major concerns. So that's going to do it for the post-game show tonight. We'll be back on Wednesday, New Year's Day. The Nuggets will be taking on the Atlanta Hawks, and then they've got a back-to-back with at home against San Antonio and then in San Antonio on Friday and Saturday. So this is a tough stretch here for the Nuggets. I mean, they've got a lot of games in the month of January, 15 games, and this will be a really, really important stretch of the season. But that's going to do it for the show tonight. Again, the Nuggets get the 132-121 win over the Utah Jazz and improve to 18-13 on the season. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, and we'll be back on New Year's Day reacting to Nuggets and Hawks. We'll see you next time.